Hey everyone, this is the Infatuasian podcast, a show where we aim to illuminate and celebrate Asian culture and creators. We have a culinary legend with us today. It's Chef Roy Choi. Chef Roy Choi is a Korean-American restaurateur and culinary innovator known for co-founding Kogi BBQ Food Trucks, blending Korean and Mexican street food, which helped ignite the modern food truck movement. Roy has starred in and produced several TV and film projects. Chef Choi has received numerous honors, including being named the Food and Wine Best New Chef in 2010, and he was also one of Time's 100 Most Influential People. He won a James Beard Award and an Emmy for his series Broken Bread. He's written 2 cookbooks, LA Sun, My Life, My City, My Food in 2013, and in April of 2025, he released The Choi of Cooking. Joining me on this episode this week is my sister Caryl, who, of course, is connected to all my culinary guests. So we'll get to our conversation with Chef Roy Choi right after this. All right, we have a culinary legend with us today. Hello and welcome to the show, Chef Roy Choi.
Hey, how you doing, Curtis? Good to be here.
It's great. And you know my sister Caryl, yeah?
Oh, of course, Carol. I feel like I'm family. I'm part of the team. I've known Carol for so long, and it's been an amazing relationship. I'm so happy to have you.
No, it's great to have you here. I got to say, I'm a little jealous of 2 things. One, I think you guys have much better weather than us right now. We're in the 50s right now. What are you guys at? You're in the 70s, 80s?
I just to make you feel bad, I'll say the 80s. Well, it's close. It's high 70s in December.
Yeah. Oh man!
But this is not out of the norm. I was every time it's hot in December, I think back on all the Christmases. I'm like, is this weird? Is this strange being this hot? And I think back on all my Christmases, and everything was in t-shirts.
T-shirts and flip-flops, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I'm jealous of is your baseball team. Like Caryl and I are lifelong Giants fans.
Mm-hmm.
So it hurts, man, to see you guys just winning every year. But it is fun to see the Asians like owning the field. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in LA and San Francisco, we are very, we know our histories together.
Yeah.
I love the Bay Area. I've lived in NorCal. I used to pop up and back every weekend for nightclubs and partying and food. I have so many friends from East Bay to San Francisco to Pacifica to Marin. I love every little thing about the Bay except the sports. And you guys are probably the same way with us, and
that's fair.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
It's fun. Yeah, it keeps it fun.
Like, you ever been to it's tough for me. Like when I go to Lucky Chances, and then you go, everyone's wearing Giants gear.
Yeah,
that's the toughest thing for me.
Yeah, no, you're not. Yeah, especially the Filipinos, they love their teams, man.
Oh, they love. Yeah, it's all Giants gear and Niners gear in there.
Yeah. So we're just gonna have a little time to dig a little bit into your roots. But if anyone out there wants to know more about your upbringing, they can read it in the book LA Sun. You go into a lot of details. But let me jump a little bit into your roots. So you moved to LA around 2 years old from South Korea?
Yeah, I was born in Korea, and I moved here when I was about 2. My parents immigrated, and they wanted to. They had been in America before, so they had a taste of America. And anybody who's had a taste of America, when they go back to their original country, it's hard to go back. So I think they worked trying to figure out how to come back to America, and then they had me in Korea, and I think the plan was figuring out they were willing to give up everything over there to come here with nothing versus, being successful over there. So another part of it, I think, was also driving them was, I was born with an upper cleft palate. And, in Asia, everything is very homogenous. And I think they were thinking it would be very difficult for me to maneuver through the world having a big scar, on my upper lip. and because everything is magnified in a homogenous society. So
Yeah.
that was part of the equation as well.
Yeah. Huh. Do you know, or has anyone ever, have you looked up, like, how big was Koreatown in LA in the 70s? It probably wasn't that big at that time, yeah?
There was no Koreatown.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no Koreatown. When I first immigrated here, probably I started getting memories probably from around 3 or 4. We were
Mm-hmm.
living in what is called Koreatown now, off Westmoreland and Olympic,
Yeah.
and I clearly remember the first market being erected or born. There
Huh.
was only one. At first, I clearly remember like the first couple restaurants and then the first wave of stores. The first wave of stores that I remember were like 1 hour photo shops and trophy stores, which is pretty strange. But
Uh-huh.
if you understand Koreans, you understand why the first wave of stores were trophy stores, because Koreans love to golf. And they love to golf and they love to be competitive with each other. And so they didn't really have much other than like their apartment and trying to make it through life. But even in the struggle, the most important thing to them was having a trophy to make their friends feel bad.
I never knew that. That's so interesting.
That's a fun fact. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
as long
sure.
as you can needle it into your friends, that's the story of life. Right?
Interesting. Now, I've heard you say that, and you can read about it in your book too, that you were the poster child of bad Korean sons back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, that was actually deemed upon us by Anthony Bourdain.
Okay.
Funny enough, he had David Cho and myself on his show, first season, like second episode of Parts Unknown,
Huh.
and they were trying to figure out what is the angle of this episode. They didn't want to just do a traditional like, here's the history of Koreatown and blah blah blah. So they were looking for an angle, and the angle they came up with was bad Koreans, and then they found David and myself, and then they used that to juxtapose against the good Koreans and model minority, and then
Yeah.
get deeper into a larger conversation about why Asians are considered a model minority and how that's just a fallacy and a stereotype and all these things.
Yeah. And I've heard parents threaten their kids with military school, but your parents actually sent you to military school. Is that true?
My parents, they followed all the way through. They definitely don't have empty-ended threats. And then the way I got there was even more intense. I had a long rat tail, and my dad grabbed me by the rat tail. I was like just chilling in bed, man. I was just chilling, just like being a delinquent teenager. And then next thing I know, I was being grabbed by the rat tail, and then I was in military school. Like I
Wow.
remember riding shotgun, and then him driving me to Long Beach, and then like literally just dropping me off, and then next thing I know, it was like the movie Taps. It's like it was over.
Yeah.
In reading your book, though, and just knowing a little bit about you, you've been a rule breaker in the culinary industry, but you were also a rule breaker in just life as a teen and as a young man. Do you think that's just always been part of your DNA to kind of push the envelope and challenge the norm?
Yeah, I think a lot of it wasn't derived from being a rule breaker or going against the grain. I just I didn't experience the world in the same way, I guess, as most society or the common ways were dictating. And a lot of that, I think, goes back to the fact that I was alone a lot when I was very young. My parents, just the era in which they came to Los Angeles and what they had to do to survive. They just kind of left me alone from like 5 years old on. Like
a latchkey kid.
Yeah, latchkey kid, but like latchkey kid on steroids. Like they pieced out like 8, 9 a.m. in the morning. I didn't see them till like 8, 9 p.m. at night. And so and there's no like agenda or plan that they gave me. Like it wasn't like, okay, Roy, do this and go here at 1 p.m. and do that. It was just like, see you later. And then I had the whole day to kind of figure out what it was I was going to do. And I think because of that, I kind of developed my own rules, my own way of looking at the world, and and the way I move through the world. And I think that just inevitably led to I guess breaking rules. Because the rules that were already in place I didn't really apply to me.
Yeah.
Because I was so fluid. And I think that's really what happened.
Yeah, your boundaries were very wide. You had a lot of free reign, I guess.
A lot of free reign. Yeah, I was. It's like being homeschooled.
Although, it's funny you say it as a rule breaker, but then like now we say people are disruptors, and that's like a positive thing that they're disruptors. So you were a rule breaker, but now you're a disruptor.
Yeah, I guess so. But again, to me, none of those. I never looked at it like I was disrupting or breaking anything because I was just living my life. I wasn't just an alley cat, out there doing what I was doing. And these were the rules of life, street rules, alleyway rules, like middle of the night rules, like these things are, everything doesn't just exist on popular society's limitations, within 9 to 5 p.m. Like there's life after midnight, and so there's a whole different set of like circumstances and rules, and those are the rules that also apply to kind of the way I looked at the world.
Yeah. Huh. No, you're right. It's not rule breaking if you're just living a different set of norms, like
yeah. And if the rules that we deem as rules, if those aren't the rules that you live by or even apply to, you don't even comprehend or like digest the fact that you're breaking anything because you're just living your life. And that's kind of how I went through the world. So then everything that I learned and developed and practiced as I went through the world became a derivative or reflection of that. And then that combined with me being a very shy, private person, I learned a lot of things on my own, and I figured things out on my own. And because of that, I kind of developed in a way like my own, I guess, like Jeet Kune Do of moving through the world.
Yeah, and you're still doing that.
And I'm still doing that. I don't know any other way.
One of my favorite stories was when you're in kind of one of your lows in I think you were maybe late 20s. You're on the couch and you're half awake at your friend's house or maybe your house, and you hear this voice telling you to make. They're going over a recipe, going over some cooking, and the voice was Emeril Lagasse, and that was a sign to you to go into culinary. That's the coolest story.
Yeah, that was it. It was I look back on it and I have to admit it was probably an out of body experience. I had been doing a lot of drugs. I was in a gambling spiral. I wasn't sleeping normally. I was up for days at a time. But beyond all of that, I was also in a very transitional space in my life. And, my antennas and my senses were operating on a different algorithm and scale. So everything was open, almost like shrooming, like everything was open for different information. And, I just have to believe that there is different information out there in this world, besides what what is tangible, and when you're open to it, what happens is it just starts to flow into you differently. And I think I was in that state of being, and I had an out of body experience with Emeril, and it was a sign, it was a sign. It was as real as anything could be, but it was also not real, and but it made me change my life.
Yeah.
So that part's very real.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. and you end up in CIA in Hyde Park, New York, Culinary Institute of America, and you actually were valedictorian. That was a cool thing to read. Number one in your class.
Yeah, strange. I was a speaker of the class, and I was just trying to. But I think what it was I was always kind of an outcast as a student. I got decent grades, but I didn't really care for school. I was a stoner all throughout high school. Kind of like, I ate behind the buildings. I really didn't eat on, in the quad. I was just like disenchanted, with everything, and I went through the motions, but I just wasn't really that focused. Sat in the back of the classroom. I knew all the tricks of. I mean, you're a teacher, but I knew all the tricks of falling asleep. I don't think you would have caught me in my day. I don't know if you know. You probably have your tricks too of picking up on things, but I always stayed a half a step ahead. I was really good at falling asleep in class. But when I got to culinary school, it was the first time where things like really, really stuck to me, and I went from the back of the class to the front of the class. I went from falling asleep to raising my hand, and it was just like I finally understood when something it just really resonates with you and you're connected to it. It's not that you're a teacher's pet; it's just like you're locked in. And I never had that feeling before until culinary school.
Yeah, that's cool. And then you graduate and you kind of bounce around hotels and resort cooking, and you end up back here in California. It didn't end so well. The Rock Sugar project didn't go quite as planned, and so you're at another low. And then what happened in that moment when you're kind of at the low point in your culinary career? What kind of led to Kogi?
That was after like a 15-year career of being a cook in New York, moving on to hotels and resorts and country clubs, and then getting back into a big restaurant opening. It was just the end of that era. I hit rock bottom. I got fired. It's the first time I got fired as a professional. I'd been fired a lot in high school, but it's the first time as a professional I got fired. So it really hit me in a different way. And the timing of the whole thing was a weird time too, because the economy was crashing in 2008. I was at a weird intersection of life, because within my little world, I had ascended to the top of my field. Right, I was a big box, high, luxury brand, corporate hotel chef, running the Beverly Hilton to that scale of hotel. So my trajectory and path would have been moving on to Singapore or Dubai or Tokyo and running, a Hyatt or a Conrad or, a Raffles or things like that. That was the next stage of my career. But when I got fired, the economy crashed, so I was almost overqualified for any jobs that were out there.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't that big of a deal, I was still on paper overqualified, and I couldn't find a job, and I was out of a job for many, many months, and it was getting pretty scary. But at that point, again, like the Emerald situation, I was very vulnerable. I was open to the universe. I was working on a different algorithm. There were different senses and information entering my whole atmosphere. And that's when my friend approached me about opening the Kogi truck. And I say all of these kind of metaphysical things because I needed to be at that stage. I needed to be at the lowest point of my life for Emerald and for Kogi. I needed to be there where not only I had no other options, but also maybe anyone listening is when you're at your lowest point, there are no options. But if you look on the other side of it, you're also open to all the options.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You could invert it,
Yeah.
and you're open to everything, which you may not have been open to before because you're stuck within the confines of traditional society dictations. But when you're completely removed from all of that, then all of a sudden, anything sounds like a good idea.
That's so true. Because, like, yeah, if you had been in a corporate job with benefits and a steady salary, would you have taken a risk to buy a food truck and make tacos? Or, that would have seemed more crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't, and even if I was in between jobs, but the career was still like, there was still opportunity.
Right.
I don't know if I would have been open to it because there was no context for that at that time for being a chef and doing that. Because I grew up as an immigrant kid, opening small stores and restaurants with my family, and the same thing when I see a lot of my cooks and their families. In many cases, when you're opening a street stand or a food truck or a taco stand or a taco truck, it's because that's the only way that you can make money. It's the only path to an economy because a lot of times, whether it's language barriers or experience barriers or cultural barriers, you can't really get the corporate job. So but at that time there wasn't really context for if you did have choices. Selling food on the street comes from not having many choices, right? But when you do have the choices, there wasn't context to go back into opening a food truck. So these were the jobs of our parents and our aunts and our uncles. But now I think through Kogi, what's happened is like it's just opened up the opportunity for people to choose, choose to do this, and it allowed people to tap into their family roots and be proud of them. Because a lot of people that started food trucks after Kogi were sometimes kids of food trucks, and kids of street vendors that went on, or small restaurants, that went on to carry the legacy or create a new legacy.
Yeah. Well, what was the food truck scene? It was roach coaches and taco trucks back then, like in 2007, 2008. What was out there in terms of trucks?
Yeah, it was white catering trucks that mostly went to construction sites.
Right.
I trained on those trucks before Kogi. That was where I staged, basically, on the white catering trucks. And I have to give all my love to the women that took their time and trained us, and trained me and took us in. We'd wake up at 3 a.m, meet them at 4 because their day starts at 4. And because they have to get to the construction sites by 5 or 6. And one of the big routes we were doing at that time was the big JW Marriott Tower at Staples Center. That was I saw that building literally being built from like the 5th floor iron all the way up. Because every morning we would go there for a couple months, of just feeding the whole crew. And those guys can eat, and those guys, and because they have to get all their food at the beginning of the day because they're up like 36 floors up, doing like welding and iron work. They all bring the huge igloos, and they just fill them up with food. So it's very, very busy on those trucks. So there's the white catering trucks. There are taco trucks. And then there were the movie set catering trucks.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was kind of like the 3 type of trucks that existed. And unfortunately, there was the moniker of Roach Coach, which was, I think, trapped in an old racist kind of semantic ideology of how people viewed certain things, whether I think it lied in the same realm of when people used to make fun of Asian box lunches, and call it stinky. It was the same thing, type of ignorance and racism that was placed towards food of a certain culture of a certain neighborhood, and it was labeled roach coach, right? It was dirty and all these things. But through the efforts of everything that's happened with Kogi and since Kogi, and through technology and social media, we were able to change that. That's why I'm always hopeful in the world that change can happen. Things don't have to be the way they are, especially in terms of racism or subjugation or inequities. Like, the world can change because it's now gone from roach coach to gourmet, and the whole conversation and language behind it has changed. The whole interface and experience with it has changed, and who is hiring and using food trucks has expanded, and that old ideology is now a thing of the past. No one would ever use that term anymore. And no one would ever look at it in the same way as before. And unfortunately now we have new versions of that. Obviously with the immigration policies and ICE and all these things that are being dictated by certain governments, but those can all change too. It's just these very narrow viewpoints on humanity that don't have to be there, but it takes certain actions and certain moments in order to change the language. Language is a very powerful thing. The use of language is probably the most lethal weapon there is. And it can really destroy a civilization and people very, very easily. And and so we see that going on now. So as bad as it is now, I think it can change because I saw it change in front of my eyes.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me. Yeah, no, you're right. The landscape has totally changed. Starting with you, well, you might not have been the first, but the first that I ever heard of, a branded modern food truck, with gourmet food, and you were hitting the masses. What were those early days like? Would there be a Kogi truck without Twitter, or were those two things hand in hand for your success?
Yeah, there would still be a truck without Twitter for sure, because our plan wasn't really built around Twitter. Twitter was a happy accident. So the plan, our plan was to go in front of the nightclubs.
Okay.
So we weren't really looking beyond in terms of like being a global sensation or anything like that. We were looking to be street vendors outside of the nightclub, and we wanted to operate basically graveyard shift, 12 to 4 a.m., and then like sleep in the day and then have a break and live our life that way. And we were extremely content with that. There was something liberating about it and fun and free,
Yeah.
like being a DJ, it was like our life revolved around partying and good times and and being completely invisible in a sense, which is the polar opposite of social media and bringing attention to yourself. We almost wanted to be invisible and be locked into different clubs and like just live that life, to be honest. And then Twitter was a happy accident. We started using it because it was free.
Yeah.
That's the only reason we started using it. And also, it was just a time that phones were transitioning. It was the first year of the iPhone.
Yeah.
And so it was just a new fun tool to use. But we really didn't look beyond it too much. Like if you look at the first early tweets of Kogi, they were just like random thoughts and just like locations.
Yeah.
And like speaking to the empty atmosphere. And and it just caught on.
I have a good Twitter story though. So when you came, Roy, you came and spoke at the event I did up in Silicon Valley, and one of our sponsors, he was like employee number 7 at Twitter or something, and he had gone to left to start this startup for restaurant reservations. But he said, "Oh, I want to introduce Roy." I'm like, "Okay." And the story he told as he brought you up on stage was how when they founded Twitter and they were trying to describe what it was to people and pitch it to people, and they were like, "Well, you just tweet, then it's 70 characters and you can put whatever you want. And people are like, why would I do that? Well, because you can tweet things. It's like, well, what do I tweet? It's like, well, just your thoughts or any ideas. And people are like, I don't get it. And he said, once Kogi started using it to be like, yo fam, pull up, we're going to be at, Western and whatever. It's like, everyone was like following you and knew where to go to find Kogi because of Twitter. It's like we stopped having to explain what Twitter was to people. They saw what it's like. It's a really timely, immediate, short message, and you can follow who you want to get the updates from. And it's like after Roy started using Twitter, we didn't have to explain it anymore.
That's exactly it. Kogi definitely connected the dots on Twitter and gave people a purpose to use it. It became a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
And people needed something positive at that moment, and Twitter was in this obscure space of we didn't have any context for it. Of like, why would I broadcast my location to someone to people I don't even know? And there was no context for it. We were still in the era of MySpace and Friendster and chat rooms.
Right.
So there wasn't really any. And then Kogi connected the dots, and then it became this like scavenger hunt through Los Angeles in this very fragile time where people were losing their jobs and their homes. And it gave like this little positive kind of like burst of energy where people could go and congregate and hang out for 2-3 hours and forget about their problems, because the lines were 2-3 hours long, and people would just by choice come out there, and they needed that time for themselves. They needed to just put on some headphones or bring a lawn chair or talk to a stranger, and just to get away from all the problems that were going on. That was a really interesting time. If we were smarter, we would have gotten some stock in Twitter at that time. Man.
Oh well.
Yeah, I could have been a billionaire, man. Like I could have been a tech billionaire if we would have been like any smarter. But unfortunately, we made Jack Dorsey and Evan Williams tech billionaires. No, they created it, but Kogi gave it meaning for sure.
I heard a cool story, and I just confirmed it with Caryl today. That I heard you talk about this girl at UCLA who kind of came up to you and said, "Hey, have you heard of this thing Twitter?" And she kind of did the early post for you, and I just found out that's the one and only Natasha Pham.
No, that wasn't Natasha. It was Angela Kim. But Natasha a couple months later.
Okay.
But Natasha did go to UCLA as well. But what happened with Angela was it was on one of the nights we were at the club, and one of the nights was Asian night. It was on a Thursday.
Perfect. Yeah.
Asian night's always on a Thursday or a Wednesday, and it was Asian college night.
Okay.
And up until then, we were just serving the clubs, man. But on Asian college night, just something changed, and it was because of Angela. Angela came out, and all her friends were eating, and she just had a very like responsible vision of being like, this is it's finals week at UCLA. Your food is crazy delicious, and we don't have any food up there right now, and it would be amazing if you guys came up, because there's like thousands of kids just stuck in their rooms studying. And, we went, and that was the night. That first night we were there was the kind of the night the folklore of Kogi happened, because we ran out of food, and we stayed on site and prepped more food that people brought us. Like all the students called their friends to go to Koreatown to buy ingredients for us, and we stayed there and we prepped. So it was like 2-3 hours of having to prep more food and get ready. And during that time, these thousands of students were all there, and we're all surrounding and congregating around us. And that's when everyone started joining our Twitter, sharing the information about Kogi, taking pictures, doing videos, doing all these things. And it was kind of that night, everything just mushroomed within hours.
Wow.
Which is pretty incredible.
That's cool. That's a cool story. All right, Angela Kim, and then you met Natasha a couple months later.
Yeah, that was Angela Kim that did that. And then I met Natasha in February when I did my first kind of public appearance, because we started in November of 2008, and for those first 4 months, it was just head to the ground working. You know, I was on the trucks, just feeding the streets. It was really, really intense and crazy. And then in February was the first time I could come up for water and like be off the truck. And it was Jonathan Gold who put me on a panel with Nancy Silverton, Jazz from Chitletta, and Jimmy Shaw from Loteria Grill. And you know, I literally came from the truck. I was like a wild wildebeest that just like came from the jungle like onto the stage. Like I was still like beaming of like just the energy of cooking, and I just went on there and I just like just spoke my truth. And Natasha was in the front row there, and you know, she was just really like connected to the things we were saying, and she was willing. She approached me afterwards and said like, I'll leave my job if I can intern with you guys. And I was like, I'll intern. We're a taco truck, man. Like there's no intern here, man. And I kind of like brushed her off, but she was persistent. And then there was history after that. And,
yeah,
you know, we wouldn't be here without Natasha.
Still working together. Yeah, that's cool. Caryl has the movie chef question or a comment for you.
Yeah.
Well, no, just wanted to talk about that because to me, it was also another turning point, kind of inflection point in the story. So the way I understood it, Gwyneth Paltrow, because she's always like looking for the hot news, she knew what Kogi was and hired you guys to come to the wrap party for Iron Man.
Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2. And so that's how Jon Favreau and everyone, Robert Downey Jr., everyone got turned on to Kogi through that.
That's the story. Yeah, she hired us at a wrap party of Iron Man 2, and it was at a big house in Malibu, I believe. I don't know if it was her house or not, but it was probably a party house or a rental house.
Mm-hmm.
And we served, and yeah, that was the first time John had our food. But it was a funny story there because we also got stuck there. It was up a hill in Malibu, and then I think our transmission dropped or something. We went over this like speed bump, and we were in the driveway. But then we didn't know the truck was like broken, but we just went right to service and started feeding. And then right when we wrapped up and it was time to go, there was no go. We were stuck there all night, and so that kind of like was our first like introduction and moment in Hollywood. But yeah, it was, and that experience I think was something that stuck with John from what I heard from John. And later on, when he went around to write the script for Chef, that memory stuck with him, and eventually led us to meet and led us together. And once him and I met, it was just love at first sight. Like we just connected and became friends and collaborators, and creatively just, you know, had a shorthand with each other from day one.
Yeah.
And that movie has just been the gift that has kept on giving, you know, for me, you know, like it allowed me to meet one of my best friends in life. It allowed me to enter the entertainment world, you know, to exercise a different muscle within myself, to realize that I'm okay at it, you know, pretty good at it, and that became
you do okay at it.
And fun. And then it led to me doing my, you know, like my first TV series,
right?
And then going on tour, and Caryl helped us with the live tours of the movie, because the movie had a legs of its own. It wasn't just, you know, most movies aren't as lucky to have this life that lives on, you know. Doesn't mean they're not a success, you know. But a movie sometimes has an opening weekend. It's in theaters for a few weeks. It goes to DVD, and it's kind of it's in the ether, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this movie it connected with people so deeply that it went beyond the screen. You know, it went to live pop-ups, it went to tours and like cooking
A
demos and
Vegas restaurant.
a Vegas restaurant and a
Yeah.
TV show, and
Yeah.
you know, it just kept evolving into more and more and more, and yeah, it's been really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that. We did that cooking demo at the premiere at South by Southwest, and what struck me the most was as we're setting up. It's the press junket, so they're ready to kind of meet all the press and share this movie with them. And John he's the director, so he's like, okay, I want that set up over here. I want the media over here. I want this. This is what timing this is happening. And then we get over to the stage where the cooking demo is going to happen. He looks at Roy. He's like, all right, chef, how do you want to do this? What do you want me to do first? And the roles changed. And he was the sous chef, and he's looking at Roy like, tell me, chef, how much do you want me to cut this, and what size? And it was so interesting to see him completely just shift gears, and like suddenly he was the sous chef.
Yeah, he's very good at that. He's very good at not only switching those gears, but then locking in to whatever role or position he has to play.
Yeah.
That goes to his character and his personality, but also his dexterity is probably like nothing I've ever seen in life before. He can pick up something and be proficient at it within minutes. It's a skill that is very rare, and John's a rare human being, and it's just something that because his dexterity is so good, he was able to lock in and switch into those roles very quickly. And I think maybe being an actor first as well, he's able to understand how to transition into a role, a background role or a supporting role, or to play a character, and to be a part of a scene and not suck up all the oxygen, in that scene, and to understand how to work as an ensemble. And he also comes from sketch comedy, and improv. So all of that, I think, is what you witness, Caryl, in the moment.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we're bumping up against the clock, but we got to talk about your new cookbook, The Choi of Cooking. And I think we're all in our 50s here, so I think I know the story behind it. But why'd you write this book, Roy?
This book is, I guess, because you do mention growing older in age, and you start to see the other end of the tunnel a little bit. You start to understand the finite thread of life. You don't really think about those things, as you, especially when you're a teenager or in your 20s, you're not looking, the end is so far. But then as you kind of go over the middle hump, you can start to see the end on the horizon. I don't know why we, as humans, only have this finite life. It seems like we should all be here forever. You know what I mean? Like and it's I know none of us have figured out the meaning of life yet.
Nope.
But it's just strange that we only have 60 to 90 years on this earth, and then it's supposed to end. And so, anyways, this book is about all of that. It's about confronting the finite thread of life and realizing that I can see the end, and if I can see the end, then what do I want to leave behind? And this book is hopefully, if I when I do leave this earth, that it could live on and it could inspire future generations that deal with addiction, weight issues, binge eating, malnutrition, ostracization within society, being an outcast, and wanting to eat healthy, but also not wanting to eat salads, And so this book is like all of that, of like,
Yeah.
it's kind of, we start the book by saying, this is my Jeet Kune Do, this is like, I've reached a certain place in life where because I've always been very shy and not so like confident in believing like I could share something or know something. I always felt that was a little narcissistic, or I just didn't have enough knowledge. But then when I started writing this book, I realized this is everything I know. I'm not going to learn that much more, like, and this is like kind of what I got. And I think it's kind of a lot, and maybe it's important that I share everything, and then that way in the future, someone could pick up this book where they are maybe a little bit of an odd lot or off the skew, or don't have learning disorders, or don't digest the information the same way as others, or learn at a different pace, that they could see this book as something that speaks to them, and so that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to create kind of like my own Brazilian jiu-jitsu, in a sense. That's really what the Choi of Cooking is. Of like, this is the Gracie style of jiu-jitsu. This is like the Choi style of cooking, and it brings a lot of happiness and joy, and it at the same time also fills your life with a lot of flavor and joy. It teaches you how to cook by breaking down all of the things to very, very digestible formats that are easy to follow. It's kind of a paint by numbers thing. And then, but it also is healthy. It also, without being over the top or lecturing, it combats the problem and the issues of processed foods and fast food and packaged foods within our society, by giving you the ability to cook for yourself, but still have all those sensations. So really, the book, a lot of the recipes are built around, because sometimes as chefs we build recipes of what become an extension of our ego, in a sense of like, hey, we want to show you how great of a chef we are. This book is a little bit different in the sense that I wanted to really figure out what people like to eat and what I like to eat, and not be ashamed of those things, but then these things that we really like to eat sometimes aren't the best for ourselves, health-wise. And so I really kind of like tinkered with it and tried to figure out, how can this tuna melt taste like a tuna melt? How can this macaroni and cheese taste like macaroni and cheese? But then how can it be a little bit healthy as well? Right. A lot of that came from really pungent flavor compounds, different pastes and pastes, and different pickling and fermentation methods, different spice blends, really creating flavor bombs. And and that's what the book's all about.
That is gorgeous. I love it. It's
Thank you.
I've been cooking through it a little bit, and some of the recipes only have like 4 or 5 ingredients. Super simple.
What you're touching on right now is probably the most important part of the book, is making the recipes approachable and simple, that it inspires you to actually go cook.
Right.
And it doesn't feel like a chore. Nothing feels like a chore. And that it actually is almost as easy as ripping open a package, right? Yeah. Cooking, there has to be some bridge at a certain level to allow that to get people into cooking. Because you can have all the other advanced stuff, that's going to exist, the French Laundry and the Nomo books and all these things, right? That's, that's going to exist. That will always be there for your travels and transgressions through culinary. But there also has to be a beginning stage, and you as a teacher probably understand this very deeply. I think we have to invest just as much into the beginning stage, into the entry phase. And sometimes we forget to do that for a lot of people. And we have to make that as exciting and as sexy and as important as the finishing stage, you know. And so I try to focus on the entry phase, you know, and getting 4 ingredients in a recipe, getting people to cook, making it fluid and something natural.
Yeah. Now we're recording in December, so it's before the holidays, but by the time this comes out, it'll be after the holidays, but it's never too late to get a copy of Choi of Cooking for your friends and family out there. I think, you know, especially people who are leaning towards maybe moving towards a plant-based diet, there's a lot in there. I think, Chef, you've made the switch like in almost a year now of plant-based.
Yeah, I'm not fully plant-based, but I did stop eating what I call 4-legged animals.
Okay, yeah.
I got that term from my friend Gary.
Makes sense.
You know, so pork, lamb, beef. I did stop that. It's been over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very thoughtful on the animals and proteins I do eat. You know, I'm trying every time I have a choice to eat a meal. If I don't have to eat the poultry or the fish, I always try not to. And I don't know, it's just a personal thing. I do have the goal of, again, talking about the finite nature of life. If I am to unravel this last yellow brick road of life, whether that's 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever it is, towards the end of it, I am working on an internalized personal plan of, when I start to get there, I want to be completely vegetarian by the time I get there. I want to die a vegetarian.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm working towards that. But I'm halfway there now.
Okay. No, I respect that. It's hard to go cold turkey when you're a chef and you just love food and you're around chefs and you're around.
You have to take steps, and for recipe development, I still do have to taste everything.
Sure.
And being Asian, sometimes I still have to kind of fight and maneuver my philosophical stance on things.
Sure.
It's just a quick story of, like, I've dabbled in vegetarianism ever since high school. 2 years in high school, 2 years in college, 2 years in my late 20s, 2 years in the early days of Kogi, and then now. But, like, when I was younger, Asians don't understand vegetarianism.
Yeah.
So my mom would always put beef soup in front of me, or chicken soup, or my aunts, or anybody. And then, so the equivalent of like a beef noodle soup, or all these things in Korean, right? And I would say, I'm vegetarian. I can't eat this. And then what they would do is they would pull the bowl back. They would take out all the chicken or beef, and they give it back to me and say, "Look, vegetarian." So
all the Asian vegetarians out there can relate to this for sure.
Yeah, all the Asian vegetarians. If it's just broth, it's vegetarian.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey, one final question is, we ask our guests to choose an infatuasian. Infatuasian is anyone Asian, living or deceased, that you admire. So, Chef Roy Choi, who is your infatuasian?
I mean, it's always been and always will be Bruce Lee.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody else.
For our age, yeah. At our age, when we were kids, that's all we had. Yeah.
But also, like, he was so ahead of his time. Like, when you read some of these interviews, or the way he talks about being Asian in that time and in Hollywood, it's deep. I mean, he was very deep.
He's philosophical for sure.
Yeah, it's very deep. He wrote philosophical books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He had created his own martial art.
Yeah.
Made 7 movies.
Yeah.
Won championships, and then created a spiritual lifestyle.
Yeah.
All before the age of 30. I know. It's really crazy, and he represented, for Asians out there, when when we were just caricatures in modern media. And I can't even imagine like how he did all that. And he did. But man, if I could sit with Bruce one day in life, you know.
Yeah.
And since Quentin Tarantino is so much in the news right now about talking about Paul Dano and just talking so much shit, like Quentin Tarantino, man. Like what he did to Bruce in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
The way that you know, whatever Bruce's personality, I know he wasn't a perfect human being. You know, a lot of these heroes that we have in our life, you know, had different side hustles and side pieces and different things. You know, they weren't perfect human beings. But yeah, Bruce Lee would never lose to Brad Pitt. You know,
yeah.
So, like,
get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here with that.
Wait, so you've mentioned Jeet Kune Do a couple times. Just for people who don't know what that is, can you kind of sum it up and why that resonates with you?
I use that as an analogy in the Choi of Cooking because it was similar. I resonated so much with it in the way that I cook. And what Jeet Kune Do was, you know, Bruce came up learning Wing Chun Kung Fu and Chinese boxing and different styles of martial arts. But none of them fully were realizing the way that he saw the world or that he felt was really pushing his potential. They were almost suffocating and confining in a way. And so what he did was he took the best elements out of all of the different martial arts in the world and then made a gumbo out of it, you know, and kind of made a new recipe with no confines and no restrictions, you know, and kind of broke the rules, became a disruptor. And like we started this conversation with, and created his own art form around all of the best things of the other art forms. And that became Jeet Kune Do. And that's kind of the way that I cook. Not saying it's the best of the best, but I take all of the best things I love about all the different styles of cooking, you know, and without thinking about whether it's authentic or whether I'm breaking a rule, I just apply them into the dish that I'm making. So the dish may have a technique from France, or it may have a spice from India, or it may have a conceptual idea of blending hand-pulled Korean noodles with Jian hand-pulled noodles. And it might have all of these things, beef noodle soup mixed with yukgaejang, mixed with tingling spice, but then with peppercorns and cumin, but then it's a pozole crisscrossing with like you know, like like an intestine style Chinese soup, you know, and it's just all these things that are constantly crisscrossing and mismatching with each other, but they end up creating a new form, which becomes like my style of food, and people eat it, and they feel it, they understand it, you know, and it's coming from all different points, and that's the Jeet Kune Do of cooking.
Yeah. Oh man, I can sit and listen to you for hours, Roy, but we're up against the clock here. I know both of you have meetings to get to, but thank you so much for your time. This has been so enlightening and so fun.
Thank you, man. This has been the most efficient podcast I've ever been on. And shout out to the Asians, baby. You know,
I will say that's Curtis does meticulous research and really plots out his points he wants to hit. So
you're a Japanese Shinkansen train, man. Like, thank you.
The 5 S's, yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. Everyone get the copy of Choi of Cooking wherever you get books, and you can follow Roy all over social media. I'll post the details in the show notes. And as usual, Caryl, thank you for the introduction, and we'll talk to you. We'll see you at Christmas.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you. Go Dodgers.
Oh, boo!
No, sorry. Bye.
Bye. See you later, guys.